Adventurous kids explore with education and learning what a wildlife is in the Everglades. I want to explore the Museum of Discovery Science. What plants do butterflies like? I want to know about Key West. Adventurous kids, learning and fun. Adventurous kids!
Today I'm going to tell you about westward expansion. From 1803 to 1890, the United States exploded with growth. It spread out from coast to coast, becoming one of the biggest countries in the world. In the first half of the 19th century, America's population grew a lot. There was a boom in immigration, and more people were born. This is because of two economic depressions. People moved to new places where they could start a new life or live cheaper. In 1800, the United States did not look the way it does now. It was much smaller. Instead of sprawling out from east coast to west coast, the whole country extended from the Atlantic Ocean to what we now call the Midwest. During the next 100 years, the tiny nation would grow. Today we call this growth westward expansion. President James K. Polk played a major role in expanding west. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson bought the Louisiana Territory from the French for $15 million. This is called the Louisiana Purchase. It added Texas in 1845, and a year later signed a treaty with the British for control of the Pacific Northwest. The puzzle was almost complete by 1848 when the U.S. took control of the Southwest after the Mexican-American War. There were just 5 million Americans in 1800, but by 1850 there were 23 million. Many people in the United States believed it was the country's destiny to expand westward all the way to the Pacific Ocean. This belief became known as the Manifest Destiny, and it's reflected in some of the art from the period. Most of the original settlers were trappers and mountain men. If you were tough enough to survive, you could make a good living trapping animals and selling their fur. These guys helped set up some of the first western forts and trading posts. Native Americans taught them safe routes across the deserts and over the mountains, and soon trails were mapped across the continent. The new areas didn't become states right away. At first, they were incorporated into territories. Territories had their own governments, but were basically controlled by the U.S. Congress. But as soon as enough settlers moved in, they could become states. To encourage this, many territorial governments offered an amazing deal. If you moved onto a small plot of land and farmed it yourself, you'd be given that land for free. This was called homesteading, and lots of settlers took advantage of it. Others came to California during the gold rush to strike it rich. Even others, such as the Mormons, moved west to avoid persecution. One tragic result of the westward expansion of the United States was the forced relocation of many Native American tribes. As the United States moved west, it took over lands once occupied by Native Americans. In many cases, Native Americans were ordered to relocate to new lands or reservations. Very few pioneers were harmed by Native people. The pioneers followed many different routes, but the most famous was the Oregon Trail. From the early 1840s onward, hundreds of thousands of people traveled these trails. Their journey covered more than 1,800 miles. It lasted around 5 months. The United States continued to expand westward and gain land. After a war with Mexico over the rights to Texas, the country gained much of the Southwest including the land of California. They also gained the Oregon Territory in a treaty from Great Britain. Things got a lot easier for settlers when the Transcontinental Railroad was completed in 1869. All of a sudden, anyone could reach the West Coast in just a few days by taking the train. The transcontinental telegraph was instrumental in keeping the lines of communication open between the East and West during westward expansion. In 1890, the U.S. government announced that the West had been explored. The country now had 44 states. Only Utah, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Arizona had not been admitted as states from today's contiguous 48 states. Thanks for watching this Adventurous Kids episode.
What did you learn today?
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!
What was the most interesting fact?
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous Kids!
Adventurous